through the week, folks. First take on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Stephen A., Max Kellerman.
What's up?
Molly Karam.
What's going on, my man? Hey, you.
Hey.
Ollie.
How we doing, guys?
I'm good. I'm good. Let's roll.
Guess what we're starting with? Tebow. Here we go, folks.
Oh,
Buckle
you love
up.
it. Don't pretend you don't love it.
I swear I forgot. I swear I forgot.
Received mixed reviews after a workout that lasted more than 2 hours before an audience of 28 MLB teams at USC. Only the Chicago Cubs and the Oakland A's did not send representatives. He ran a 6.7-ish time in the 60-yard dash, really impressing scouts for his size especially. He also showed undeniable hitting ability during batting practice with a series of line drives and long homers. But Tebow struggled with live pitching. This was against former big leaguers who repeatedly fooled him with off-speed pitches. Fielding was another issue that he was criticized for, catching balls with two hands rather than one. Here's Tebow on his performance.
You know, since I was 4 or 5 years old, there's been two things that I loved the most in sports. One was playing quarterback, having 10 other guys look at you and depend on you to win a game and then hit a baseball. Specifically, those two things. And the second hardest decision that I ever made was giving up baseball. You know, when I felt like I had this opportunity, I want to take it and pursue it with everything I had. You know, when you're at the combine or a pro day after your college football career, you have your body of work for 4 years, everything that you did. So it's not just that one day. Here, you might have seen me when I was 17, but you haven't seen me since. So there are, a lot of nerves, a lot of pressure for sure. And a lot of people will say, but what if you fail? What if you don't make it? Guess what? I don't have to live with regret.
What if you fail, but what if you succeed? Stephen A., your reaction?
My reaction, to be quite honest with you, and I'm dead serious when I say this, is that this is disgusting to me. I was absolutely disgusted to see 28 teams show up for Major League Baseball. I think they are disgraceful. I think they've wasted their time. I think if you're ownership, unless you're trying to look for some kind of sideshow, some marketing situation, they had no business being there. You had no business spending money on scouts being there from 28 of the 30 Major League teams. That is money that was wasted. There is a process that you are supposed to go through in order to get yourself to Major League Baseball. There is a process that you are supposed to go to in order to get the attention of prospective scouts for Major League Baseball teams, let alone minor teams. And when you are 29 years of age and you have never played in Major League Baseball, you have never played in minor league baseball, you never played college baseball, the last time you played baseball was when you were in high school, and for 28 teams to show up to watch him play is an absolute disgrace. I am not blaming Tim Tebow for this in the slightest. You are allowed to dream. This is America. This is the greatest country in the world. It's the land of second chances. I get all of that. I understand it. I'm not casting aspersions on him, even though it would be nice to you to learn how to throw a football before you learn how to throw a baseball. That would have been nice, but that's neither here nor there. That is a subject for another day. But when I think about Tim Tebow, and I think about what comes to my mind, Max, are all the guys out there that are busting their tail, working their behinds off, starving for one camera to show up and spot them and to give them some shine in any kind of platform. But we got 28 teams, we got networks showing up, and for what? What the hell has Tim Tebow done to deserve to have 28 teams from Major League Baseball show up to watch him perform? I want to give major props to whoever his agent is. Congratulations, you're fantastic. You do an absolute job. You're absolutely marvelous. You have done a marvelous job. Phenomenal agent, phenomenal. He deserves all the credit in the world. Okay, we got that going on. All right, I want to give props to Tim Tebow because somehow, some way, you don't mind being the manipulative individual that you are in your quest to gain notoriety for things unearned. But I also want to take a moment to give props to Adam Jones and Buck Showalter for the Baltimore Orioles and others who pointed out the fact that, you know what, guess what? We can go out there and just peel anybody from high school and they could play Major League Baseball. He does not deserve consideration for this. There is a process that you are supposed to go through. He never went through it. He's trying to bypass it. As far as I'm concerned, he's trying to take the easy road to it. It will not work. He will not be successful in his quest. And damn it, he doesn't deserve to be, because the grind, the work, the pounding of the pavement that comes with being a Major League Baseball player is not something that he has done. Football is different. I think Tebow deserves another chance in the NFL. Not to play quarterback, but I do think he deserves a chance to be on an NFL roster. But a baseball team, could you show me AAA, AA, single A, something? Could you do? You know what? Why don't you rejoin the damn high school team at age 29 and see if you can play with them first? And he hasn't played since high school. He hasn't played. Hey, listen. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Let Tim Tebow go back to high school. I don't care. Let Tim Tebow go back to high school and prove that he could play high school baseball. Because guess what? There are high school baseball players that are better than Tim Tebow. Am I lying? Am I lying? Are we going to sit there and deny that that's possible? There are high school baseball. I didn't say football. He's an All-American. He's a two-time national champion, even though he was a backup the first time with the national championship. Every tried to act like he's the starter instead of Chris League. But the point is, as a baseball player, Max, he has not proven anything. He did not warrant that attention. It's a travesty that he got it. And America needs to ask themselves, why did Tim Tebow get that attention? Because he did not deserve it. He did not deserve it.
Stephen A. Smith.
Whatever.
Ask not for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
Oh, Lord.
That's right. Now,
what does that mean?
What does it mean? Who among us doesn't leverage what we have for opportunity? Yeah, I have this thing that can get me an opportunity to do something I want, but no, it's not fair to everyone else, so I'm not going to leverage that. So how did Tim Tebow get what he got? Is it simply because he connected with
He got what he got because he's got a pretty damn good agent. That's why. That's why.
Because he connected with evangelicals? Well, yes, he did connect with evangelicals. Like, he has a large following. But no, the primary cause for him that enabled him to get what he has is the fact that he was an all-time great college football player. He was on 2 national championship teams, as you mentioned. He won the Heisman, as you mentioned. What you didn't mention is he also started for an NFL team that couldn't buy a win, went 7-4 as a starter, and won a playoff game against your Pittsburgh Steelers for a franchise that couldn't do it. He did it.
That's a very low blow. That's a very low blow. I'm about to get low on you.
I'm about to get low
You bringing up the Steelers. You bringing up the Steelers. You really getting on my nerves already. We ain't even start the show yet. You getting on my nerves. All right, go ahead. Keep going. Keep going. You done started something now.
Let me ask something. There are a lot of starving actors in this country.
Yes.
Yeah. How many acting lessons you've taken?
None.
Don't lie.
I seem to remember that Stephen A. Smith was Brick and is Brick a recurring role
I see where
on
you're
General
going.
Hospital.
I got you.
Did
I'm glad you brought that up.
This is good. Keep going, Max. This
Because
is
you
great.
studied Meisner technique.
Go on.
What was it exactly?
Go ahead.
What school of?
Do you want me to answer now, or do you want me to answer now, or wait until your little soliloquy is over?
Drop the mic. Max, drop the mic.
Sports broadcaster, world famous.
Be careful. Be careful. Getting yourself jumped in there. 2-on-1. I can take on both the other side. Go ahead.
To get an opportunity and technically take a job away from a starving actor who's paid their dues. Or should I call you Stephen A. Tebow?
Can I ask you a question? Can I answer that? First of all, as General Hospital will confirm, I never asked for the opportunity. They asked me.
You were chosen.
I'm honored, but I was chosen.
Yeah,
Number one. Number one. Number 2, Max Kellerman.
Yes.
You must have a good agent.
Number 2, Max Kellerman.
Because I wouldn't apologize for that.
Tell me, wait a minute.
Say
Tell me, wait. Everybody, my agent had nothing to do with that. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, and more importantly, another thing that you need to know. Everybody sits there and says, I did a good job. Ain't nobody saying that about Tim Tebow. Who the hell saying that he did a good job?
You know why?
Oh, no. You started it. Let me answer it. Number three, my role as Brick on General Hospital is a recurring role. That means they asked me back.
Is what he said.
He's Andrew Saris, too.
That means they asked me back. In the case of Tim Tebow, he's sitting up there like a vagrant begging for an opportunity. You see the difference? Don't you ever?
He's begging for an opportunity? 28 teams showed up.
They came to watch him. After he put it out there, I'm going to be trying out or whatever. I don't see no Major League Baseball team calling him. I don't see a minor league team calling him.
And he's
I
not
don't see a Major League team calling him for the minor league.
He's not going to make it.
So
like
guess what?
Stephen A.
He doesn't have any of that. While me, I just happen to be talented. What do you want me to say? I don't complete.
You didn't hold a casting call?
I don't complete 46% of the passes I throw. I don't win games by completing 2 passes in a game. I don't sit up there and lean off of the popularity that I have to facilitate a level of success. The talent that
Why
comes...
do you think they want you on General Hospital?
Well, excuse me.
Because you're popular.
Oh, wait a minute. That may be the case, but again, I had to show up and produce. I didn't hit...
But let's put it this way.
There was nobody there.
Let's put it this way.
You can go. Hey, listen, you can call my man Sonny. Listen, I got Maurice Bernard, who played Sonny Corinthos in General Hospital. I got Victor Newman, the character of Young and the Restless, who's Eric Braden. I had Robert De Niro. All this is a two. You don't Robert De Niro. I had him.
He didn't hear the sound.
He heard it before he came on the show.
Okay.
Remember, he said that. So you got all of that. I got validation. Who the hell is validating for Tim Tebow? Who the hell is validated Tim Tebow?
You get the opportunity for 2 reasons. 1, because you're popular, and 2, because people can see a performer in a broadcast medium may also have the ability to perform in a dramatic role.
I didn't go for football or baseball. Exactly.
I got to finish the sentence.
Go ahead.
So it may not translate exactly, but someone who has star quality as a broadcaster, maybe they have star quality as an actor, whatever their technical proficiency. Tim Tebow has star quality as an athlete.
Really?
Yes.
Are you
kidding me? He was a top college player.
Nonsense.
He was a successful
It's a dog
NFL
and pony
quarterback.
show.
So they're at least showing up to look at him.
First of all, it's a dog and pony show of epic proportions. Secondly, Tim Tebow, everybody seems willing to push Tim Tebow in front of everybody's face. He's certainly willing to do it to try and gain recognition. I don't have to push anybody. A matter of fact, one could make the argument I'm being held back. There's a hell of a lot more that I could do that I'm not allowed to do. I'm a gifted brother. Let me say it right now. Don't want God in light. Don't want. I will show up as a cameo maybe someday with my man Eric Braden and Victor Newman. But outside of that, I'm General Hospital loyal, hardcore to the death. Maurice Bernard and the crew. That's my boys. General Hospital. But my point is, I'm a gifted brother. Ain't nobody questioning. You can sit up there and say what you want about me. Sorry to brag, but it's necessary in this particular instance since Max brought it up. Don't you ever compare me to Tim Tebow.
I just did.
Because Tim Tebow, the athlete, had his opportunity to show up as a quarterback. And he did. No, he did not.
Of course he did.
It's horrible. 46% completion percentage.
You say, why don't you concentrate on football? Because people like you don't want to give a shot in football.
Excuse me. That's not true. I have been on the record. If you did your homework, Max, I sat up there and said Rex Ryan and the Jets sabotaged him. They ruined him. Okay. He deserved a better chance. I have said repeatedly that Tim Tebow deserves a chance to be in the NFL. He's just not a quarterback.
Right, he wants to play.
He won. He won.
And you know what? His record as a quarterback is 7-4 with a playoff.
So we caught up with feelings now. Excuse me. You sit up there, I asked Max Kellerman, who are his guys? Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, et cetera, et cetera. This guy, Tim Tebow, people who complete 58% of their passes are considered mediocre in the NFL. But this dude completed 46%, and you're going to make an excuse for him? Oh, come on.
Percentage is a means to an end.
Really?
If you achieve the end another way, it doesn't really matter that much.
What about, yes, let me tell you why it does. Because you see, you know your boxing. You love your basketball. Let's get into a little football for a second.
Let's do it.
When we're talking about football, and you're talking about completing 46% of your passes, even if you got a high QBR in the last 5 minutes, what about the first 55 minutes? If you sit up there, that's not true.
Good enough to beat the Steelers.
Time out. That defense. You can't sit there, Max Kellerman. See, I got you now. You done threw yourself under the bus here. Because you're the guy that talked about how awful Peyton Manning was. Yep. We all know that the Denver Broncos won a Super Bowl because of that defense. But they won games when Tebow was there because of Tebow?
I'll tell you why.
It wasn't the defense? It wasn't the defense?
Can I say why?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Because they had a quarterback, Kyle Orton, who was losing with the same team. Tebow came in, they started winning. Whether it's inspiration, perspiration, whatever it is, they started winning.
Oh, my Lord.
Peyton Manning took over a team that was winning with Brock Osweiler.
Oh, please.
There was no substantive difference in terms of their success between Peyton and Osweiler. Therefore, it was 100% the defense.
Time out. Tim Tebow clearly assisted in them winning. Okay, because the Denver Broncos...
We're done with the segment?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Because the Denver Broncos were the #1 rushing attack with him.
Can we get to what this is about?
The point is that he can't throw. Baseball, when you're playing the field, requires you to throw. They didn't even shit. I mean, the man could, listen, he was catching the ball with two hands in baseball.
Can we get to what this is about?
And then you got people bragging about, he did a 6.6 in the 60. Look at his speed, running from home plate to second base. Bryce Harper couldn't do that. Derek Jeter couldn't do that. They had the blasphemy, the unmitigated gall, the insulting. I can't believe that somebody actually mentioned Derek Jeter and Bryce Harper's name in the same breath as Tim Tebow. Do you have any idea how insulting that is? Derek Jeter, and you calling yourself a New Yorker. You actually took that. You actually sit up here and
don't create a straw man. That's not what's going on.
And come to the defense of Tim Tebow because when somebody mentioned Derek Jeter and Tim Tebow in the same sentence, you should have been off the wheels right there. But no, not Max Kellerman. Not Max Kellerman. Because we love Tim Tebow, right?
Let's get to what this is about.
You got a great agent.
Underneath it all is the question of why is he getting these opportunities?
Okay.
Why? And by the way, this is the first time he's actually used his celebrity in an athletic capacity to get an unfair opportunity that wasn't available to others. This was the first time in an athletic capacity. Yeah. What? You go 7 and 4 as a quarterback. The point is, why does he get the opportunity? You seem to be insinuating that the opportunity has something to do with the connection he has to fans, many of them evangelicals as he is, and that obviously has something to do with it. He's connected. He has a fan base that's connected to him for reasons maybe outside of football or more than just football. But he also, and you can't deny it, was an all-time great college player. Let's not pretend that never happened, even if you want to dismiss his NFL success, because I don't know how else you would call 7 and 4 with a playoff win against the Steelers.
That's how.
But,
well, go ahead.
But like, are you going to deny that the prime kind of mover of his popularity was his college football success? Are you going to deny that he was an all-time great on that level?
Max Kellerman, you're a cerebral individual, highly intellectual, so let's go that route. When we talk about Tim Tebow and what's really, really going on here, it's not the evangelicals who support him. He's a good man, God-fearing individual. It's impossible to root against him. What I'm talking about is realistically. I'm not talking about utopia. I'm not talking about what we would like it to be. Because if in my perfect world, Tim Tebow would be a star quarterback in the NFL because as a human being, he deserves that. But he's not good enough. Now, let's get to the point. It's not about the Episcopalians or anybody else. You know what it's about? It's about the media recognizing the fan base that he has and gravitating to that, and the sports world assisting in that at the expense of individuals who have earned what is given to him. We pride ourselves as a nation, particularly in the world of sports, where we are talking about a meritocracy, yet we throw that out the window when it comes to Tim Tebow. It is what Buck Showalter alluded to. It is what Adam Jones alluded to. It is what I am flat out saying. Tim Tebow is a good man, and we hope that he will ultimately find his way in the world of sports and be successful because as a human being, he deserves it. But as a professional athletic performer, he comes up grotesquely short. He does not deserve the opportunity, not ahead of thousands, if not millions of other people who are ignored. And it is wrong that his popularity got him that
quality of opportunity.
It is wrong.
Is an almost universally accepted political and social idea. Equality of opportunity. Not in its literal sense, but that's not possible. But in a broad kind of way, everyone goes in for that. I get it. And yet, it is hypocritical for any of us, for most of us, to sit here and say that that ideal would trump in our own personal experience using whatever leverage we had for whatever opportunity we were interested in.
I didn't blame Tim Tebow. But I didn't blame Tim Tebow. Yeah, but Max, I never blamed Tim Tebow. I said the media and the teams. I never said it was Tebow's fault. Matter of fact, I actually was on the record. I said if I would do the same thing if I was Tebow.
But the teams who send representatives there are either inefficiently using their resources, and that will come back to haunt them. The smart teams, the Cubs and Oakland, big market, small market, but they're both brainy, didn't send anyone. That may be a signal of something, but they'll be punished in the marketplace, in the competition.
It's still wrong.
What do you mean? It's not an issue of right or wrong.
Guys, we gotta go to break.
Principally is wrong. By the way,
that was fun, though.
Just
that
go.
really was fun.
Tim Tebow, go to the WWE, work for Vince McMahon. He's in phenomenal shape.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
He's got a great fan base. I'm telling you, you'd be so
That's a good idea.
I think he should go to WWE.
That's a great
That's a good idea, Brick.
He's just as big as Seth Rollins. It looks just as big.
I can't with either of you. All right, we want to hear from you guys on Twitter. Let us know what you think. Would you want Tebow on your MLB squad? Let us know. We'll share those results a little later in the show. Terrible news for Teddy Bridgewater and the Vikings. Bridgewater suffered a dislocated left knee, and an MRI revealed the complete tear of his left ACL and other structural damage yesterday in practice. The team said the recovery time will be significant. Bridgewater went down with a non-contact injury, causing the Vikings to call off their final preseason practice after 25 minutes. The quarterback dropped back to pass during the drill, planted his foot, and immediately went down. Sean Hill has been the Vikings' backup before Bridgewater was hurt. Undrafted rookie quarterback Joel Stovey also is on the roster. Stephen A., what should the Vikings do now?
Well, first of all, they need a quarterback. Obviously, my heart goes out to them. I think that they had a shot to win the NFC North, even though I was going to go with my bad man that he is, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. But Minnesota has a shot. I think that it's obviously in grave jeopardy. But they still have a chance, because even though Teddy Bridgewater is good, he was on the come up. He wasn't there yet, and I don't think it's that difficult to replace him. When you think about a Colin Kaepernick, monetarily speaking, it might be a bit complicated. From a talent perspective, he may be better than most. It's just that being in San Francisco, going through all the things that he's going through, I don't know where his head is, and it may be too much of a risk. I'm not going that route. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to go one or two places. I'm going to go Matt Castle, who played, played in Minnesota behind Teddy Bridgewater, somewhat familiar with what Zimmer wants to do, and has the capability to make some things happen, even though he didn't have the greatest year last year in Dallas. I just think familiarity with some of the personnel, familiarity with the system, being an experienced veteran and being able to pick things up, since it's pretty much a run-oriented offense, and you got the best runner in football in Adrian Peterson, and you're not looking to pass the ball that much anyway. I think that could be an ideal landing spot for Matt Castle. The other name that comes to my mind, believe it or not, don't faint, is Geno Smith. I would consider it, because I think Geno is one of those guys, although I have huge questions about him, just 11 and 18 as a starter, only completing about 57% of his passes. Nothing that impressive, but I mean, since we just finished talking about Tim Tebow, I mean, compared to Tim Tebow, I mean, Geno Smith might look like Joe Montana because of 57% completion percentage. I mean, my Lord.
Let Geno go try out for baseball, Stephen.
It's certainly a situation where, 57.9 compared to 46.7, look at the jump. So I look at it from that perspective, and I say, wait a minute. Geno is in desperate need of a change. Geno's approaching the last year of his contract. He needs to get the hell out of New York. He needs to be in a place where it's a cushion for him, because he has a stout running attack, and he doesn't have to pass the football but so much. He does have wheels on him and the capability to run the football himself. I think when you look at it from that perspective, if you got a guy that can learn an offense, okay, that you don't have to depend on his exploits in order to deliver the goods, and you're just looking for some sort of a manager, I think Geno Smith is capable of doing that. I think Matt Castle's a better option, but I think that is the way for you to go without attaching a bunch of drama to the equation if you're the Minnesota Vikings.
Geno Smith is incapable of doing that. If he was capable of managing the game, he would be the Jets quarterback. But he lost his job to injury, that's true, off the field injury, because of the broken jaw. But even at that moment, Jets fans would say out of the sides of their mouths, man, I feel bad for Geno, but this may be the best thing for the football team, because Fitzpatrick, is kind of more what we need. Geno Smith looks really good some weeks, but he can't do it consistently. And now even in college, remember his last season in college, like, oh my God, in the first half. And it's like, what happened to that guy? It's almost like two different seasons.
It was.
He hasn't been able to do it consistently. 43% of the offense is the run in Minnesota. They won 11 games playing that way. And you mentioned Bridgewater's on the come-up. He wasn't there yet, but he was getting better every year. Pretty spiral out of his hand, makes good decisions, and all those kind of things. And by the way, before I say anything else, I feel everyone feels terrible for Bridgewater. Everyone likes him. Look under any rock. You don't find anything bad about the guy.
He's an incredibly
teammates
nice
love
kid.
him. Everyone. He was on Sports
nice
Nation a couple years ago when he was coming out of the draft, and the first impression I had was he's slight of build. How is he?
Too small.
It just doesn't look like he's going to take the hits, and this was a non-contact injury. So Thankfully, apparently, he'll be able to have a career again after missing a season. Hopefully, everything turns out well for him. But this is a team that needs, I mentioned how liked he is, that maybe responds to a quarterback who is well-liked and will manage the game and all that stuff. And some of the other guys, other than Geno, you mentioned, maybe could do that. But to me, Colin Kaepernick is obviously the top choice. Yes, it comes with some controversy. No, he hasn't won the locker room in San Francisco, obviously. Maybe he can't do it in Minnesota. But I'll remind people, Minnesota's a state that elected Al Franken to the Senate out of Saturday Night Live and Jesse Ventura out of the WWF back then to be governor of the state. I think they could handle Colin Kaepernick as quarterback, and he is so clearly the best of what's out there. This is a guy who, unlike Geno Smith, it wasn't just like a couple of weeks he was good and then a couple of weeks he was bad managing an offense. This is a guy who took the team farther than a #1 overall draft pick Alex Smith did in San Francisco, all the way to the Super Bowl, almost got all the way back. He's performed at an incredibly high level in consecutive seasons, including the playoffs, for an NFL powerhouse in the not-too-distant past. I would not allow the controversy surrounding his sitting down for the Star-Spangled Banner to stop the Vikings, who won 11 games, have a run-heavy offense, a good really good defense and everything, from making the best football decision here.
But the flip side to it is that we're not just talking about the controversy for the national anthem situation. We're also talking about a Colin Kaepernick that long before that, there were issues about him in the locker room, his ability to lead and galvanize the troops. You know, he was considered somewhat of a lone ranger, someone who was aloof, somebody that teammates didn't necessarily gravitate to. Think about who he would be succeeding. Somebody that you just started off your soliloquy pointing about how Teddy Bridgewater is so well-liked. You see everybody loved him. They feel sorry for him. He's a great, great kid, and he's got the kind of personality that's insatiable. You get around him, and he's impossible not to like. And so when you have that dynamic in a cultured locker room like an NFL locker room can be, and you just disrupt it totally by bringing in somebody who is the complete antithesis of everything that Teddy Bridgewater has personified. When you're this close and knocking on a door because you have all of those requisite parts around you, you can't risk it with that kind of personality.
That's the best argument against it.
In no way am I knocking Colin Kaepernick, because some of it may be false. Some of it may not be true. Please don't get me wrong. I don't know him. Give him the benefit of the doubt. All I'm saying is that consider when you think about who you're bringing in, particularly at the quarterback position, you must consider exactly who you're replacing. And it's not just talent, it's all the requisite things that come with it, because it's the quarterback position. If there's a running back, so be it. Hand the ball, run the ball, be gone. But when you're the quarterback, everything about you has to be in line and
that offensive line's got to want to play for you.
Everything.
No question, which is why I brought it up. Like, I'm acknowledging that dynamic. I agree that's the strongest argument against Kaepernick. But now put yourself in the position of the Vikings, who just won 11 games, who have a great defense, who are playing well behind that offensive line, obviously, great running back, the whole thing, and are in a position in that division where you only really have one team to worry about. And you saw what happened when their lead wideout went down last year in Green Bay. Otherwise, you look at that division, you go, we got a really good shot to get to the playoffs. Now, which quarterback among those available do you think actually, including taking that into consideration, what you just brought up, gives you the best chance to win? If Kaepernick is healthy, I don't think it's close. Even considering a division in the locker room that has nothing to do with his protest, it has to do with his personality, not being able to rally the troops, whatever else it is.
Sean Hill has a relationship with Norv Turner also, and he's been there around and knows the system. So that has to play some role.
That plays some role, but
give the ball to Adrian Peterson.
Well, that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. They've got to open it up because Adrian Peterson is over 30 years of age. Even though he's defied Father Time and he's still the best running back in football, you don't want to push your luck too much, particularly when you're knocking on the door, because you're thinking about conserving him for the postseason. Then you got to take into account, you called their defense great. What are they? 12th against the pass, 17th against the run. 5th in points allowed, but 12th against the pass, 17th against the run. That's not great. That's good. That's decent, but it ain't great. You're going to need some level of production, but more importantly, a level of continuity where everybody's in sync. The Minnesota Vikings are one of those middle-of-the-road teams. They're not great, and they're not poor. Here's the danger of the middle-of-the-road team. Everything has to flow right. The slightest thing to disrupt it could ruin everything. And Colin Kaepernick definitely could help you ascend. But he can make
yes, there's risk.
He can. It's a huge risk, and it's not a risk worth taking at this point.
But if you believe they're a middle-of-the-road team and they just lost their starting quarterback, all of a sudden they're in a much weaker position. This is the time to take a calculated risk. Now, if your calculation is it's not worth it, okay, because Kaepernick has also declined on the field. But when I look at what else is available, I just don't think it's close.
I think that when you look at the way they run their offense, I think you can go that route. I think you can go the safe route with people who know the system, people who can run an offense, and more importantly, people who you're not fearful will disrupt your locker room.
Those guys win playoff
games. For one reason. Well, the Minnesota Vikings didn't win any playoff games. So what's the difference?
They won 11 games and got there.
They won 11 games and got there last year. But years before that, that wasn't the case. All I'm saying is you're building something. You're ascending.
Yeah,
you're going this way. You don't need any hiccups. Don't take the chance.
I say Kaepernick's the guy.
No. Kaepernick in Denver for me, not Minnesota.
But again, such unfortunate timing with how this team has come along and the whole team really on the come up. You mentioned Colin Kaepernick. You're not the only one on Team Cap. Colin Kaepernick will start for the 49ers Thursday when they face the Chargers. San Diego will be paying tribute to hundreds of thousands of current and retired military personnel who live and work in the area. Meanwhile, military personnel tweeted their support for Kaepernick's actions Tuesday under the hashtag Veterans for Kaepernick, one of last night's top trending topics, and was also still trending this morning. Max, does this change your opinion at all on Kaepernick having the veterans behind him?
Well, not at all, because I support his protest in the first place. I think what this indicates is that the United States military is, although it acts as a great fighting force and a monolith in terms of its capacity to keep us safe and to enforce, foreign policy from a military point of view, etc., it's comprised of individuals, of Americans who in civil society voice their opinion and have many different opinions. And anyway, there's never unanimity in any group of people, even like dictators who say that they won 99% of the vote, which never happens, of course, and you know it's nonsense. They even don't say it's 100% of the vote because there's no such thing as unanimity. There will always be people who voice an opposing opinion. And in this case, men and women in the military who look and think, I'm sure, what am I fighting for? His right to protest, his right to try to insist that we live up to our ideals and to try to lend his voice to that struggle. I think that's all good. I haven't yet brought up the fact that Kaepernick shows up to the press conference in a T-shirt depicting Fidel Castro. Whatever you want to say, people who want to celebrate his early history as a kind of people's promising revolutionary and everything, went up the head of state as as they all do, communist dictators do, as an oppressive communist dictator and a big human rights violator. And so when he shows up in that T-shirt making the point about how America has to live up to its ideals, it makes me look at him and think, he reminds me of a college sophomore who's starting to learn about the world, doesn't yet know how to vet the information or how to process it or how to integrate it into a broader system of beliefs, and so appears to be misguided at best and really ignorant, or worse at worst.
That shirt's very offensive to a lot of people.
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's a stupid thing to do. But in terms of, so that, if there's something that wants to make you anti-Kaepernick, and I've been strong pro-Kaepernick on this show, it's something like that. But even then, his right to be stupid, that's an American right too. And to voice a stupid opinion is also an American right. And I think that's primarily, Stephen A., what the military, men and women in the military who've voiced this kind of support on that, using that hashtag, are saying, look, we're fighting for something. And it's the freedom to do what Kaepernick is doing, to protest. And in the case of police brutality, he has a valid point.
Well, he definitely has a valid point as it pertains to brutality on the part of police officers, number one. Number two, people that were challenging Colin Kaepernick, I heard no one say he does not have the right to do it. I heard them say it was not right for him to do it. There is a difference. They're not challenging his right because he clearly has the right. The NFL encourages you to stand for the national anthem, but they don't obligate you to do so. The federal laws, the United States Constitution, it does not mandate that you have to do that. So he violated no laws, whether it be that of the NFL or, you know, our Constitution or the laws of that govern our nation. So nobody was in a position to sit up there and say that he can't do it. What they said is just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean that you should do it, because it's not right in their eyes. I side with Kaepernick because I felt like even though I would not have done it, I did not blame him for doing it, but the Fidel Castro T-shirt and whatever, I think incriminates him significantly. I think it puts him in a situation where now you have American military that are justified in questioning him, those who did. But to me, even though my opinion about Colin Kaepernick has not changed, I support his right to do what he did. Here's where it becomes a bit modified. It's not as it pertains to Colin Kaepernick. It is as it pertains to our American military. On my radio show, Stephen A. Smith's show, Sirius XM, every weekday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, on Mad Dog Radio, folks have been calling in the last 2 days. I can't tell you how many servicemen and women have called in, and you're divided. People are saying, no, he's perfectly right to do what he did. Others are saying he's incredibly wrong. I know we're saying that no matter what group you pick, folks are divided. In certain respects, we shouldn't be divided. In certain respects, we should understand. There should be some kind of unanimity in terms of our thought process. As unrealistic as that may sound, it's not beyond the pale. When 9/11 took place, as devastating as that was to our nation, if there was something positive that you could peel from it, is that we all came together and we recognized and saw ourselves as American. Not black, not white, not Latino, not Asian American, not Jewish, not Gentile, nothing. We were Americans. We were under attack. They didn't discriminate which Americans they took out. They did not care. And we came together because we recognized that we were one nation. Who personifies that supposedly more than our military? Our military is supposed to, you know, provide unanimity more so than anybody, because you're our American servicemen and women who are going out there putting your lives on the line to protect us, to uphold our values and sustain them. And so when folks are calling in and there's a different interpretation as to what it means, that leaves me confused, because I didn't serve in the military. I have relatives, family members who have and still do serve in the military. And they are all in unison. One voice. Colin Kaepernick is not wrong. When we serve our country, we fight for the right to uphold our values, not to impose our values on you. We fight for the right for you to honor the Constitution in the way that you so see fit. If you want to stand up for the flag, fine. If you don't want to do so, so be it. But we don't fight for the right to dictate to you what you're supposed to do. We fight for the right that you have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, etc. They're uniform in that. So to me, when other military folks call in, and you've got people that are coming to the support of Kaepernick, but others who are not, I'm looking at the military and I'm saying, excuse me, can somebody clarify for me exactly what it is that you stand for in this regard, in this particular situation? Because it says one thing. It's not open for interpretation. The United States Constitution is what it is. And our American soldiers, servicemen and women, they fight to uphold our Constitution. What is the confusion? I don't understand that.
Well, there's always going to be a dissenting minority viewpoint.
Dissenting is one thing. Confusion is another.
I don't remember if it's Kim Jong-un or his dad, Kim Jong-il, but one of them said, the North Korean dictator said, that they golfed one time and every shot was a hole-in-one, the first time they golfed. And even then, if there's an election, they'll claim 99-point-something% of the vote, because even someone who would claim that they got a hole-in-one every time knows that there's no such thing as 100% of the vote anytime, anywhere, particularly not in this country, when you are asked as a private citizen who's also in the military your opinion on an issue. And I was very proud of the veterans who voiced their opinion, which must be seen as, given their circumstances, as unpopular if it's framed as anti-military somehow, what Kaepernick did.
That's it for me. I don't buy that. if you are an American serviceman or woman, it should be unanimity in terms of if he was insulting, our military or not.
Well, he said he wasn't.
I know that's why I said I side with him in that regard, because he swore that he was speaking about police brutality and the African-American community. That is what he brought up. That is what he said. What I'm trying to say is that it shouldn't be a divide. It shouldn't be a divide. If anybody knows what our military is all about, it's our military men and women. So my point is that there should be no confusion. And that's what I remember yesterday when somebody called my radio show. I said, sir, there are servicemen and women who called up here on this show and said the exact opposite of what you said.
Because you're not asking the military you're not asking the military as a body. You're asking individuals in the military. I want to get back to and by the way, the Stephen A. Smith show is what, 1 to 3 on
3 p.m. Eastern Time.
XM.
Sirius XM, Mad Dog Sports Radio every day.
You might hear from Molly from Bristol sometimes.
Maybe. Maybe. I'll see if I'll let you through.
If you ever hear Cax Mellerman call in and disagree with you, it's not me. When you bring up, no one's arguing the right to protest, the right for Kaepernick to do what he did. They're arguing whether he should have done it. I hear this argument a lot. If you have the right, but it is never exercised by anyone under any circumstances because it's never the right time or place, do you really have the right? If you are coerced, if there's a sense of coercion and pressure to never do it, and we mentioned yesterday there are a couple of coaches who made it pretty clear that they have blurred the line between encouraging someone to stand for the national anthem and coercing them to do it. And I would include Jay Gruden and Jeff Fisher on that list from quotes from the other day. That you have the right, but you shouldn't do it. If you shouldn't ever do it and it's never done, you don't really have the right. What's the point in the right if it's never exercised?
Well, again,
you have the right, and people have the right to have an opinion.
Colin Kaepernick is 100% right. He's an American citizen who exercised his First Amendment rights. There is no disputing that. But you do have military men and women who believe that he didn't have the right to do what he did because it was a disservice to them. And I'm saying, how is it that folks can be confused in our American military? How can there be confusion in that regard? I know they're individuals. I know it's not unanimity. It is almost impossible to find. But if there's one place where you would think we would have unanimity, it would be that.
Well, I mean, I would think the nature of the Star-Spangled Banner. The Star-Spangled Banner is a song that commemorates a battle in the War of 1812, and so there are military roots to the song. But it has come to be the national anthem, which means it necessarily represents more than just our great military.
Okay.
It represents our great nation, and I think it's fair for a protester to point and say, this is what I'm protesting about our national anthem and our country, and it is not for the observer to insist what the protester's protest is actually about.
I just want to add one thing. I love that he's socially conscious, especially in our reality TV, Snapchat type world. But you do have to caution him to be educated on the subjects, because wearing something like a Castro T-shirt when you're trying to stand up for oppression, you're doing that exact opposite by wearing that.
You're absolutely right.
That's right.
I'll tell you this, too, in all seriousness, and I'll close it by saying this. You know, in the military, you really don't have a choice. From the moment you arrive, you got a drill sergeant, you're in boot camp. You're sort of deprogrammed from being a civilian to being programmed as a military serviceman or woman. So we have to take that into consideration, and we also have to take into consideration the fact that our American soldiers, the men and women who serve our country so honorably, the interest of America is insisted upon them to be put first, ahead of their own civil liberties. So what may be happening, in fact, right now with Colin Kaepernick is that those individuals who are speaking out are people who are in our military, who are actually speaking about a government, about an America that they don't necessarily like sometimes themselves, but are compelled by virtue of their sworn duties to uphold the Constitution, and they may not like it, and that may be the reason that they're thanking Colin Kaepernick, because they support him in certain ways that others don't. And it just shows how divided we are all across the board.
Yeah, but God bless them, because they're the real heroes.
No question.
Coming up
Don't wear the
next.
Castro T-shirt, Colin. It's a bad look.
No.
Dumb.
I know I've been gone for a moment, but now I'm back. Everybody is always asking me, am I hooping? Yes, I'm hooping. Absolutely. I'm a hooper.
That was Chris Bosh on Snapchat saying he's hoping this season, his last 2 seasons with the Heat have been cut short due to blood clots. And in February 2015, he spent a week in the hospital when the blood clots went into his lungs. Max, do you think Bosh should return?
No. And it's not for me to tell him what to do with his life or how to risk it. But from everything I can gather, I'm not a doctor. I don't know that you need to be to have an opinion on this. If he's on Xarelto, which is the blood thinning medication, which, you know, if you have blood clots, and now this has been twice, oftentimes you're not taken off. If you are taken off and another blood clot forms, obviously it could be life-threatening potentially. And while that wouldn't happen from him dribbling a basketball, and yes, he plays away from the basket oftentimes, sometimes there's contact, and it becomes really dangerous. Chris Bosh was drafted really high, was the best player on a playoff team, a 20-10 guy. Was one of the best players. He was in the nucleus of a great team that won multiple championships. He's a multiple-time All-Star. He's made a fortune. He's had a great career. At this point, though it's, as I said, it's his life, I think it's a really bad idea for him to risk that life for a little bit more. I don't quite understand why he'd want to do it. I don't see where he achieves anything he hasn't already achieved. And by the way, I also believe, Stephen A., Chris Bosh, one of the most underrated players of the era. Several years ago, when I was telling everyone on the radio, on Max and Marcellus, and on Sports Nation, he's better than Kevin Love, I was derided for that opinion. Kevin Love's giving you 27 and 12 or whatever it was. Like, do you watch them play? He's a better two-way player. I think he's really underrated. He's a great player, Hall of Famer in my opinion. Can't say enough good things about his play. Unselfish, always played hard both ends of the floor, didn't care about his stats. I think he's had a great career, but at this point, why would he risk his life, which it seems to me, you know, the team finds 5 doctors and then he can find one and say, no, he's going to be okay. But it seems to me most of them are saying, this is really dangerous. I wouldn't do it.
I respectfully disagree. But I'll emphasize the word respectfully because I know that you're thinking about his best interest, his health, not just basketball. What I would ask you to keep in mind is that a few things. Number one, Chris Bosh is a grown man. He's a grown man that's a 2-time champion. He's one of the smarter guys that you'll ever encounter. And he's just a flat-out good, decent young man. He has a family. He has weighed the risk. And it's one he wants to take. Now, obviously, you don't want to put him out there. The Heat don't want to find themselves in a situation where they'll be liable. There are ways, all the specifics are too convoluted, too complicated to get into. There are ways to work around that. I remember I spoke to members of the Heat organization after reporting on this a few months ago because I got some details. I spoke to some insiders. I pretty much learned a lot of the stuff that was going on. And Barry Jackson, who does a good job covering this team out of Miami, wrote today, he said, look, one of the reasons to clear Bosh off the cap, the labor agreement says, quote, a doctor that is jointly selected by the league and the Players Association must agree his condition, quote, is career-ending or severe enough to put him at risk if he continues playing. Chances are, you know, if you're the Heat, you're not going to be able to find somebody in concert with the Players Association so all sides can agree on this. If there is a dispute, Chris Bosh owed $25.3 million this year. In 2017, 2018, $26.8 million in 2018, 2019. You can give the Miami Heat some cap relief. I know Andy. And Pat Riley is class personified, and Mickey and Nick Arison. Tim Donovan is my boy. I love him like a brother. You're talking about a first-class organization. But Pat Riley hasn't always made the right decisions. It wasn't intentional. He didn't want to lose D-Wade, didn't want to lose LeBron, but you got to handle things differently, and sometimes he's got to see the forest through the trees. I mean, you got to know better than that. And I say all of that to say that Pat Riley is of this decision, of this mindset, that it's a risk that he doesn't want to take. Well, listen, there's blood clots and blood thinners you're talking about, Chris Bosh going on. Alonzo Mourning was a different situation. It was his kidney. But whatever Alonzo Mourning wanted to do, you supported him. You got to support Chris Bosh in this particular situation. You can have him sign a waiver. You can make sure that the liability in terms of the risk are more put on his shoulders than it is on that of the team. But if this man wants to play the game of basketball and he's going through all the necessary precautionary measures to ensure that his health, is paramount, I say he has earned the opportunity. I'm going to repeat this. Not only is he a two-time champion, he's a damn good man.
Now, this is where I agree.
He has a wife. He has at least 4 kids, possibly 5. I mean, the guys, I think it's pretty safe to say that Chris Bosh cares about Chris Bosh and his family more than Pat Riley and the Heat do. And I'm sure they care about him, but I don't think it's more than Chris Bosh cares about himself and his family. And if he believes and has validation from doctors that says he can play this game, let him play.
But if the majority of doctors feel differently, look, you have a fighter who's in a really tough fight, and he believes he's got a championship heart. Obviously, Chris Bosh has a championship heart. And he wants to come out for that next round, and you may find someone in the corner who says, yeah, he can do it. But
listen,
look, my point is, here's where I'm on the other side of the argument from the Kaepernick argument. He has the right, I believe you, I agree with you, to keep playing, and I'm sure he's weighed the risks for himself, and I don't mean to be patronizing. Hey, son, sit this one out. But precisely because of all the reasons you said, I think there's a prevailing sense that people hope that Chris Bosh is okay and maybe want to protect him from himself in this instance. In terms of the Miami Heat, I had a very cynical view about it originally because I thought they're trying to turn the page once LeBron left. They can get rid of this money, and Chris Bosh gets paid because of the insurance if they have a medical excuse and they get cap relief. But the more I look at it, the more I think Chris Bosh, if he can play, is an excellent all-star caliber player. Even at 80% of what he was, 70%, he's still way better than most. The max contract has gone up. So actually his money, go find me a better player for that money you could acquire right now. I really do believe at this point my opinion's changed. I do not have such a cynical view of what Miami's doing.
Well,
I have much more of a view now that they're thinking it's not worth the risk for him.
I'm not going to let Miami off the hook that much. But what I will say is, cynical view or no cynical view, what this comes down to is a player's right to determine and dictate his own future. And you can't snatch that away from him. He has a contract. He'll get his money from insurance. If he can't play, well, guess what? He wants to play. And if the doctors say Chris Bosh can go, the Miami Heat need to have a pretty damn good reason for denying him.
How many doctors?
Wait a minute.
Like, if he just finds one, that's okay?
No, and I'm not saying just one, but the point is whatever the best is, whatever the best counsel is. But what we can't do is have Miami sitting on the side, issuing no statements, not even telling Bosh what's up, saying he's not going to play. He deserves more than that.
I would say this. If the prevailing medical opinion is that he can play, I'm with you. If it's that he should not, I would say best to not.
Chris Bosh is not going to play if the prevailing medical opinion is that he can't play.
We got to go. Got to leave it there. Coming up next, bad news in Minnesota as Adrian Peterson will have to have somebody besides Teddy Bridgewater handing off to him this season. We'll preview the Vikes season after the break. As we mentioned earlier, Teddy Bridgewater suffered a dislocated left knee, and an MRI revealed the complete tear of his left ACL and other structural damage in practice yesterday. So Bridgewater's out for the season. His backup is Sean Hill. Westgate Las Vegas Superbook is now projecting Minnesota to win 8 games this season. They were 11-5 last season and won the NFC North. Damian Woody now with us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Always good to have you at this desk.
Yes.
Hopefully it'll cause a little trouble for us.
Not too much.
But not on this subject. Damian, are the Vikings done?
Absolutely not. I mean, listen, we don't know what the Vikings, what their plans with Teddy Bridgewater, what their plans were as far as expanding, what they want to do with him offensively. But remember, this was a team last year that pretty much marginalized the quarterback position. The Minnesota Vikings had the fewest passes in the NFL, only 14 touchdown passes in the NFL. They had the 5th-ranked scoring defense. So you really got to understand how this team is built. There's a guy in the backfield, I don't know if people remember his name, called Adrian Peterson. You know who Adrian Peterson is, right?
I think so.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Okay, so this team is going to run the football. They're going to line up in 2 tight ends. They're going to play smash mouth. Going to try to go over the top. and they're going to play great defense. That's a Mike Zimmer type of team. They're not going to, turn into Air Coryell all of a sudden and start slinging the ball over the field. That's not their MO.
The fact that they seem to be taking steps forward in terms of Bridgewater's development. And it's not just that they won 11 games in a division where if anything happens to Green Bay, it's not the strongest in the world, but that they were maybe going to take a step forward this year, that they could win some playoff games, they could make a little run if Bridgewater develops, and now you take that away.
Well, I think they could have, in all honesty, they should have won that fluky playoff game against Seattle. So this is a team, if you look at them now, they're actually better this year on paper, even without Teddy Bridgewater not being available for 2016, how they solidify other positions on the team. So, again, this is a team that's built on defense. Mike Zimmer, former defensive coordinator. They have more weapons on offense. They've upgraded the offensive line. It's going to be the same formula again. They're going to run the football. They're going to play good defense. And that's how they're going to win football games.
Damian. What's your definition of success for this team?
Playoffs.
So
Playoffs.
Just make it. So if they make the playoffs and go home after one playoff game like they did this past year, you'll consider that for success?
Well, I mean, if we're going to be cliche-ish about it, then every if we're going to use cliches, all 32 teams, the goal is to win the Super Bowl. There's only one winner and 31 other losers. So
it's not a cliche.
Can we get to the real topic?
I am going to get there if a brother answer my question. I don't understand. I mean, what's the scare? Were you scared to answer the question? Scared to answer the question? If the Vikings go to the playoffs and don't win a playoff game, is that your definition of success? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay, we disagree there. Here's why. Because to me, progress is success.
Right.
Stagnancy is not. If you get to the playoffs and you go home just like you did last year, it's a problem. Matter of fact, this year will it be even worse because last year you should have won that game if your kicker made the damn field goal, a chip shot, instead of missing it. But here's where it gets interesting for the Vikings. Their defense is stout. We understand that. They went from like 30th in the league, okay, to like 5th in Zimmer's first year. These boys are no joke. Zimmer knows what he's doing. He's a damn good coach. Fair enough. Defensively, I have no doubt that they're stout. Offensively, you improved your offensive line. You still got the best running back in football. I get it. But Laquan Treadwell, a rookie, Stephon Diggs, I like him. Your leading receiver caught for 720 yards. Your leading receiver. And so when I look at the Minnesota Vikings, I've got questions about their passing attack. As a result, they're going to lean heavily on the run, which they should, because we all know that. But Damian Woody is one of the people that used to talk to me and was like, look, man, certain cats defy Father Time, but only for so long, Stephen A., because even though a guy like Adrian Peterson is a stud, eventually something's going to happen. You're going to have to give him some help. So, yeah, they gave him a little help with the offensive line. I got that, particularly with Boone going there. That's why you don't want Kaepernick there. But from the receiver's perspective,
good point, actually.
From the receiver's perspective, I'm looking at a Stephon Diggs. I'm looking at a Treadwell, Kyle Rudolph, I'm just looking at it and I'm saying, excuse me, let's look at the NFC because you do have to actually play people. You don't get to, it ain't shadow football like shadow boxing. You actually have to play opponents.
Okay.
So let's look at those opponents. Carolina.
Okay.
And Arizona.
Right.
And Seattle and Green Bay. You know.
Sound like you're picking division winners. Okay, you do know there's like two wild card spots, right?
What I'm saying is,
okay.
I'm saying if you don't get a playoff win, to me, that's not successful if you're coming off a berth to the playoffs the year before. You were going this way.
Okay, so
you gotta make progress. What is so hard to understand?
So let me ask you this question.
Yes.
How many teams make progress without their starting quarterback? How many teams?
I don't
You're
know.
talking about, the Minnesota Vikings need to, advance in the playoffs. But how many teams make actual progress as a team
this is why
without the starting quarterback?
Time out. I hate to say it. I'm with Stephen A. on this one.
Okay,
it kills me to do
I'm
it.
listening.
You're killing me right now.
Okay, I'm listening. Go ahead.
What you're
He's just showing his wisdom. Don't get upset about that.
What you're admitting is that, since, we're saying, are the Vikings done? You're saying no. He says, what is the standard for success? And you're like, making the playoffs. And I agree with you there.
Right.
If they make the playoffs, that's a success because they lost their starting quarterback. But the point is, because they lost their starting quarterback, our our expectations are diminished. The standard for what is a success has lowered, and we don't expect them to win a playoff game, right? I mean, isn't that what we're saying?
That's your expectation. You know, you can't put words in my mouth. I still believe that they're going to the playoffs.
Well, will they win a game?
Wait. Yeah, I don't see why not. Let me hold on. Let me tell you something right now.
Just changed a little bit.
With Teddy, yeah, just a little bit. You know what?
Just a little.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
All right.
It's okay. With Teddy Bridgewater as the quarterback, this was a team. They didn't even really rely on the passing attack. Okay? They didn't even rely on. It's all about the defensive running game. So this whole notion, let's get back to the original question. Are the Minnesota Vikings done? Done would mean to me that you don't even have the opportunity to play for a Super Bowl, meaning you're not making the playoffs.
I don't think they're making the playoffs.
I think they are making the playoffs because look at what happened last year. The quarterback position was marginalized. They didn't even ask Teddy Bridgewater to really do anything, and they still made the postseason.
Jordy Nelson healthy this year.
See, unlike Max Kellerman and unlike Molly, see, I'm going to call you on this because you see, I actually recall the things that you say. You see, remember when I tell you I give my speeches, I'm brilliant. Because I know I'm not. I listen to those who are. And I heard Damian Woody on several occasions talk about predictability, talk about the fact that what worked one year ain't going to necessarily work the next year because now we see you coming. Now, if you are great, that would be different. But because they're not great, because they're average or slightly above average, the fact that they don't have much of a passing game, the fact that they're going to have to rely on their running game, the fact that they're going to be able to do the same things that they've always been doing, and you consider the other teams in the NFC, it's not going to be good enough. You're supposed to upgrade. You're supposed to elevate.
They did upgrade.
How did they elevate?
They upgraded the offensive line. They upgraded the wide receiver. They did upgrade
wide receiver. How?
So
Stephon Diggs can play. I know he can play. But Laquan Trevor,
Johnson.
So you're relying on a rookie?
No.
You're relying on a rookie?
He's going to contribute. There's no question about that. Listen, from where the quarterback position was last year to whoever's in there, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be the same. They're going to play off of their identity, defense, and running the football.
I think 43% of their offense was to run. That's high.
The question was, are the Minnesota Vikings done? Yes. And I say no, because the same formulas that they had last year will work again this year.
They will play 9 games and they will miss the playoffs. They will win 9 games and they will miss the playoffs.
Oh, well, that's why they play the games, right?
That's right.
So when it's all said and done, then I'm going to come back and holler at you. We're going to have the discussion.
Let's do it then.
9 wins. They sound like a done team to me.
Can we go to commercial? Thank you. Well, another day and another reaction to Colin Kaepernick's protest, this time from NBC football analyst Rodney Harrison, who had this to say to KBME Sports Talk 790 in Houston.
I'm a black man, and, Colin Kaepernick, he's not black, okay? He cannot understand what I face and what other young black men and black people face or people of color face on an every single basis when you walk in the grocery store, when you walk in, and you might have $2,000 or $3,000 in your pocket and you go up into a Foot Locker and they're looking at you like you're about to steal something.
Rodney Harrison later went on to apologize on Twitter. I never intended to offend anyone. I was trying to speak about my experiences as an African American. I apologize to anyone that I offended. Wasn't meant to be hurtful to anyone. God bless. Last point, I want people to know I never even knew he was mixed. I should not have called Colin Kaepernick's race into question during this morning's radio interview. It was a mistake, and I apologize. Max, let's start with you here. What's your reaction to Harrison's comments?
Well, first of all, I believe him that he's not commenting. It wasn't commentary on the fact that Kaepernick was raised by his adoptive Caucasian parents and that he's not counting the fact somehow that his biological father was African American. I believe him when he says that. I take it on face value. And so I think he embarrassed himself, Rodney Harrison did, because he was ignorant of a subject where, especially if you're an NFL analyst, and your job is to know the NFL, that you think, how did he miss that one, that Kaepernick is a person of color? How did he not know? But then you step back and, you know what you get wrong? You get wrong knowledge that you take for granted. Why didn't he look it up? Because he takes for granted that he knows someone's racial identity and never second guesses it, so never bothers to check. The point is still, yes, it's embarrassing that there's that kind of gap in Rodney Harrison's knowledge. What I don't understand, and I noticed you were tweeting about it yesterday, Damian, is the level of anger that then ensues. Is it not enough nowadays for someone to be embarrassed? Yes, they have a media platform. It's increased responsibility, I get it, by a gap in their knowledge. We all have embarrassing gaps in our knowledge we wouldn't want exposed. Is it not enough that the man must be humiliated by that? In addition, do we have to be angry at him too, assuming that he didn't know that Kaepernick was a person of color? Now, if you think that he was making some commentary on his parentage, on Kaepernick's parentage and his upbringing, that's a separate subject. But if you take at face value what Rodney Harrison says, I didn't know, I don't know the reason to be mad.
To answer your question, yes, it's okay to be mad because I'm not about that foolishness. I'm really not. First of all, you don't have to be a person of color to take up issues that, that affects, the community, of people of color. That's number one. I mean, that's the thing that really just blew my mind, the whole thing. Number two, who is Rodney Harrison's not the gatekeeper of blackness. Like, how are you, Rodney Harrison, able to tell Colin Kaepernick about his blackness? Like, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. This whole thing, to me, boils down to this. First of all, don't be quick to jump into an interview or in front of a camera or whatever without having a clear, concise thought about this whole topic. This is a complex issue. It's been a complex issue for years. So I don't understand people that just quick to just make comments without thinking things through. I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't let him off the hook for just going on radio and just saying.
Then you're dealing with the content of his point, you're saying.
Yeah,
the content of his point itself is that even if Kaepernick's not a person of color, because he didn't know, so what? He still doesn't have to stand for the national anthem and still can protest police brutality.
Right. It don't matter if you're, black, white, brown. It doesn't matter. If you're seeing oppression, it doesn't matter what color you are. You have every right, you have a voice to say what you want to say. So when I saw that whole thing, literally, I almost blew my top. I think what you're seeing in this whole discussion, there's a lot of distraction going on. People making all these, these points that are distracting from the real issue because they don't want to talk about the real issue because it's uncomfortable. It's been uncomfortable in this country for hundreds of years. That's really the problem with not only Rodney Harrison, but a lot of other people that comment that have this big gripe about the flag and want to bring up other issues like black on black crime, all that type of stuff. It's just a distraction trying to pivot the conversation from what we're really trying to talk about here.
But Damian, just quickly, look, as a Caucasian person, I will comment on these kind of issues and take a position that may be very similar to yours. But if someone says, if a person of color says, yes, but in your protest, if for some reason you don't understand all the aspects of it because you haven't walked truly in my shoes, whether or not they articulate that in the best way, and obviously Rodney Harrison didn't, I do think that there is some legitimacy to that point of view.
Personally, I feel like this. You don't have to, if you're open-minded, you don't have to walk in a person's shoes to try to understand where they come from. That's what's missing in the whole equation right now is people are so blinded. They don't want to see they don't want to hear what other people are trying to say. And that's the issue that not only myself, but a lot of other people of color have right now. Open your mind, people. Open your mind and listen. You might not agree with everything, but at least be open-minded about the things that the people of color are talking about.
Stephen A.
I know Rodney Harrison. I got a lot of love for him. I'm sincerely hoping that he doesn't end up getting in big, big, big trouble for this, because I think he does an exceptional job on NBC Sports, and I'm a fan of his work and a fan of his overall. But Max, I got to side with Damian Woody here. Rodney Harrison was wrong. Rodney Harrison crossed the line. And he crossed the line for a multitude of reasons. Like Damian said, what if Colin Kaepernick were white? So what? He doesn't have a right to have his opinion. What if he were a white man and he stood up and said, I'm sensitive to the plight of black Americans in this country, so I'm taking this stance? I would look at him and applaud him. I wouldn't see that as a reason to excoriate him. There are white people who assisted black Americans during the civil rights movement which ultimately led to us acquiring our civil rights. It wasn't just black people marching. It was assistance from white America that propelled this country to elevated heights. We have to take that into consideration. As it pertains to Rodney Harrison, we also have to take into consideration that you are a former NFL player, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Colin Kaepernick was just in the Super Bowl 3-4 years ago. How in God's name did you not know he was black? What are you talking about? It's 2009 that you have been an NFL analyst for NBC.
So you believe him that he didn't know that he was black?
I'm not going to say whether I believe or disbelieve. Yeah. I'm saying I'm shocked. Let's take him at his word and say he didn't know.
Yep.
Now I'm looking at you as an analyst because I'm like, you work at NBC. There's something called Sunday Night Football. Colin Kaepernick has been in the league for years. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. You cover the sport. How did you not know that he was? What were you watching? What were you? That makes no sense to me.
Especially a black quarterback.
He's a black quarterback. How did you not know? And you've been covering the NFL as an analyst for 8 years now, going on 8 years. That makes no sense to me. That's point number 2. Point number 3, and this is not popular, but I'm going to say this. You know, these kind of mistakes, I'm one of those who believe you're on live television. We make mistakes, okay? I believe that if you acknowledge the mistake, that you should be forgiven for it, as long as it's not something that's repetitive. When Rush Limbaugh made his mistake years ago, I didn't think he should get fired from ESPN for the mistake he made. I thought he should have been fired because he refused to apologize once the mistake was acknowledged. When Don Imus said what he said about Rutgers women, I thought that was beyond the pale. Damn it, step up and apologize. It was when he initially refused to apologize that I felt he should have been fired, because I'm about second chances. I also remember my man Rob Parker, friend of mine that I've known for many years, over 20 years, one of the best people I've ever known. And he was right on this show and made a colossal error in the words that spewed out of his mouth about RG3. He's not here anymore. So now we have to ask ourselves the question, how much latitude or leeway should one individual get? Should it be something that has uniformity across the board? If you make this mistake, you're gone. If you make this mistake, okay, apologize and move forward. Or are we just going to be subjective in who we elect to excoriate and who we elect to not do so to? We have to find a way, because, see, conversations like this aren't getting us anywhere if we don't come to A, conclusions, and B, solutions. And what you were saying, Damian, I 100% agree with you. The color of Colin Kaepernick's skin, his ethnicity, should have had nothing to do with Rodney Harrison's opinion.
However,
and the fact that he did bring that into the equation is bad enough, but then when you were wrong about it, makes it worse.
However, and we could deal the Rush Limbaugh stuff another time, the actual content of what he said, I think you could approach from a different way. I think we could have a discussion about that in the future. Anyway, in terms of this stuff, what you seem to be saying, and I agree with both your points, that even if Kaepernick were a white quarterback, I think I would applaud the fact that, because we've been calling for it on this show, disagreed with Richard Sherman, the responsibility of white players. I agree that Aaron Rodgers and people like that in leadership positions could be doing more. I think it's important. I am not afraid to talk about these subjects. And so I agree with that point. But when we talk about why Rodney Harrison might be in hot water, you said you hope he's not in real trouble, but why is he in hot water? It's a confluence of events. None of them by themselves, I think, land him in hot water. Not knowing Kaepernick is African American, not knowing Kaepernick doesn't jeopardize him. Voicing an opinion that he believes that a quarterback who's not a person of color won't understand the plight of people of color the same way that someone else wouldn't get him in hot water. But the two combined seem to be the problem here.
Yeah, but the fact is that there's always an overlying factor. And the overlying factor is the reality that he brought race into the equation as it pertained to Colin Kaepernick, thereby intimating or insinuating that you only have the right to take such a position if you're black.
By itself, it doesn't get him in hot water, Stephen A. We know that.
I'm saying to you, it depends on the employer. It depends on the time. And it also depends on, the shrapnel of criticism, because we live in an age. This is why the blogosphere is so potent in this day and age, because companies mistakenly overreact to them. And there's nobody can rule out the possibility that they may not happen here with Rodney Harrison.
But see, here's my biggest point. If you're going to take away anything from what I have to say, is this. Forget the stuff about what Rodney Harrison said about the blackness, he's not black. My whole point is this. You are pivoting the conversation from the points of what Colin Kaepernick is trying to express, that there's not freedom and justice for all people. That's the problem. That's really the problem I have with Rodney Harrison. You hear it a lot of times with a lot of people out here, they're disgusted about Colin Kaepernick not standing up for the flag. So my message has always been, okay, let's get to the message. Let's talk about the message. Why aren't we talking about the message? You're still stuck on him standing up and saluting, but let's talk about the message behind the action. And nobody wants to go there.
Everyone's trying to co-opt the protest and make it about what they want it to be.
We gotta go.
Captivating conversation.
I know we gotta go. I know we gotta go, but let's say this in fairness to Rodney Harrison. He's a good brother that does more good than bad. Let's take that into consideration. We don't have too many cats like him who's willing to call it like he sees it. He made a mistake here. Let's remember that. I would remember it with you. I hope people will remember it with me. Let's try to remember that with him while acknowledging that he was wrong here.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Damien. Always appreciate your perspective. Breeze and the Saints offense have yet to hit their stride, going winless in 3 preseason games. Breeze has led the team to just 1 touchdown drive. So because of this, Breeze is expected to start the final preseason game for the first time in a decade. Max, is this a good idea for Breeze to be playing in the last preseason game?
I love this. And I know I'm the guy, Stephen A., who sits here and says the preseason's too long. The owners are hoodwinking the players. The players aren't making real money from it. The owners are. It's 4 games long. You don't need it. What can you really tell from preseason? You're risking players' health. A franchise quarterback in the 4th and final preseason game. What are you doing? But in this case, always got to look at the details. You have a team that's offensive line is a mess right now. They spent a 1st-round pick on Pete on the tackle. It hasn't been working out a couple years ago. Hasn't been working out. They're not getting guard play on the offensive line. Their offensive line is a mess. And so even though you got a former Heisman Trophy winner running the ball in Ingram, and you have a couple of pretty good wideouts in Cooks and Snead on the low, and you have a great quarterback, your offense can't get it done in the preseason so far. They know they're a shambles, and the defense is really the actual problem on this team. So what does Drew Brees do, knowing he needs to bring this offensive line together, knowing he needs these guys to block for him and needs to inspire them, and that they need reps as they're shuffling the offensive line around, guards are playing here and there. They need the continuity. What does he do? If the ship is going down, the captain's going down with it. He is not only giving these guys reps with the starting quarterback, but as a 37-year-old future Hall of Famer, Super Bowl winner, MVP caliber player basically every year he plays, he's taking a risk. And by the way, a real risk, because even though he is 37, he wants another contract. That's why he's talking about, I can play till I'm 45, because he wants money in a new contract. And he is risking his health, because every football game is a risk. You play tackle football in the NFL. And he's risking it to give these guys the reps, bring them together, try and inspire them, give them the best possible chance for the offense to work, because the defense ain't going to get it done. He knows that they're in a division with a 15-1 team from last year that went to the Super Bowl. He knows that there are teams like the Bucs on their way up in that division. He's doing everything in his power to get the team together. Now, if he was a young franchise quarterback with a long future ahead of him, I would say bad idea. In almost every other case, I would say bad idea. But in the case of Drew Brees, I love this. It's what the team needs, and he's willing to do what needs to be done.
Your opinion is ridiculous and almost criminal considering the fact that you cover a sport in boxing where age and attrition kicks in, and the older you get, the more susceptible you are to injury. I don't understand why that wouldn't be applicable to the sport of football. Drew Brees is going to be 38 years of age in January. He is 37 years of age now. And more importantly, you know by virtue of your personnel alone and recent history that chances are you're going to need him along with Brandon Cooks, along with Michael Thomas, along with Kobe Fleener, along with Mark Ingram and these boys to come along and save the day, because even though your defense is going to get better, the only reason is because it can't possibly get worse. The New Orleans Saints were dead last in the NFL last year in points allowed. They were dead last against the pass. They were second to last in yards allowed and second to last in their rushing defense. They were deplorable. They were a walking abomination. They were so bad that they should have been called the Aints instead of the Saints, and people should have been walking around with bags over their head, not just once they got to the stadium, but walking into the stadium so nobody could see who was actually stupid enough to be a paying customer to watch their defense play. That's how awful they were. And here you are, fresh off of a season like that. And it is a preseason game. And you got a guy that has got, about 3 or 4, 5,000 yard season. Last 2 years, he threw for 4,900, 4,800. It has been since 2006. This man has not completed less than 64% of his passes. Last year, he completed 68.3% of his passes. You are going to need him. And you have him playing in a meaningless preseason game. Why? Because Max says he's motivational. He can't sit up there with headsets on, with no uniform on for a preseason game, mind you, and just chill and relax and talk to the guy and motivate him. He has to be out on the field to serve as a source of motivation.
Everything you just said is the reason it's inspirational.
It's nonsense.
Yes, that's right.
Nonsense.
Did you see Teddy Bridgewater?
Nonsense.
No. Yes.
Come on.
Is there a chance for injury? Yes. The risk is precisely what makes this so good. He's not 23. He's 37.
Ain't nothing good about it.
I have to ask one question.
By the way,
Giants haven't looked good in the preseason. You want to see Eli play number 4? Yeah, okay. Goodbye.
No. Right.
Goodbye. Case closed. Done. Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, you don't want to see Eli Manning. But you want to see Drew Brees.
Thank you. Case closed. Up next.
This is not a talk
Every situation
is
not
allowed. You're not allowed to talk. Go ahead.
You just said the defense has no chance.
Max is not allowed to talk. Max is not allowed to talk about it. Stop.
Bump. Vontez Perfect talking more trash. We'll get into it.
That's wrong what you two just did.
Whatever.
I knew you would say that.
First Take is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. PapaJohns.com. 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas, only $6.99 each. And Sully, the untold story behind the Miracle on the Hudson. In theaters September 9th.
8 months after his personal foul cost his team a playoff game against the Steelers, Bengals linebacker Vontez Burfict was asked by Monday morning quarterback what he thinks about the Steelers. Here's what he had to say. I don't give no bleeps about them. 0. You can write that too. I don't give no expletives about them. They're just another team. They don't scare me. Just another team. It is important to note that he will be out for the Bengals Week 2 game versus the Steelers because of his 3-week suspension for repeated safety violations. Oh, Stephen A., my fellow Steelers fan, do you like, love, or hate Vontez's comments?
I love it.
Oh.
I absolutely, positively love it. Number one, because I respect his intensity. I know that he struggles in terms of avoiding crossing that line, and it is something that he's going to have to deal with, no doubt. I think Vontez Burfict is a big-time player. I think he's skilled. I think his intensity level is never usurped by anybody, and I respect him, even though he's got to get his act together. But what I really, really love about it is that I'm a Steelers fan. And so by you cursing out the Steelers and you don't give a damn about the Steelers and talking all of this smack, you seem somebody that's still relatively easy to irritate, which would work for me. You understand? Because I'm a Steelers fan. So it doesn't bother me at all. I don't want him to get suspended. I don't want him to get suspended. But these kind of things where he opens his mouth, puts him at a disadvantage, particularly when he goes against the Steelers because of all the attention that's going to come his way, how it could potentially irritate him and potentially bait him into doing something. I don't want him to get suspended or miss games and miss money, but I do want him to mess up against the Steelers. And it seems like he's ripe for that to happen. So keep talking. It's a beautiful thing.
I hate this. Because to paraphrase Shakespeare, the linebacker doth protest too much.
Oh, Lord.
He went.
You really got to stop with Shakespeare stuff, man. You really
I don't give no bleeps about them. Zero. You can write that. Now he's telling someone to quote him, dropping, you know, the F-bomb. I don't get, and then he says it again. They're just another team. They don't scare me, just another team. If all that was true, you wouldn't have to go in like that. First of all, he misses the first meeting with that team. You don't have any playoff wins in your career. He's an excellent player. Doesn't have any playoff wins in his career. Partly because he just handed the rivals a playoff win because he couldn't control himself. He knocked out Antonio Brown.
Yes.
Clearly, the Bengals and the Steelers are the class of that division, so they are the chief rivals in that division. How could, you know, of course you care more about them. Of course they're not just another team. And the way, so the facts say they're not just another team, and then the way he went in says they're not just another team. If they're really just another team, you go, oh, they're just another team. Done. You don't have to go in like that and then say, write it, quote me, and all this kind of stuff.
He's lying.
Of course he is.
He's lying. Well, the Bengals are prone to lie.
That's when someone asks you about your ex. You're like, I don't care.
The Bengals are prone to lie. Well, it depends on the ex. Sometimes you legitimately don't care. Sometimes your heart's broken and you just have to get over it. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is that they've made the playoffs 5 of the last 6 years. 7 times, I believe, in the career of Marvin Lewis, the 12 seasons he's been coaching. They haven't won a single playoff game. And I put that on Marvin Lewis to some degree. But last year, with Burfict losing his cool Backman Jones, he didn't deserve it, but
Agreed.
deserve it. But that's what it is.
But
That's what
earlier,
it is.
Stephen A., you had a great suggestion for Tim Tebow. He could go back to his high school team where he played 12 years, or the WWE.
Right.
But we wanted to know what you guys thought if you would want Tebow on a roster. And 43% said they would want him on their MLB team.
You got to be kidding me.
43%.
Who the hell? Who?
Your
Who?
fans.
Who?
Our
Who
first
said
take
that?
family. Yeah.
Who said that? Tim Tebow on a Major League Baseball. They didn't even say minor league. They said Major League Baseball.
Major League Baseball
They don't know.
team.
They're drunk.
I think they said the Yankees.
We polled a
Actually,
bunch
I think
of
they
drunks.
said they're going to bring the Yankees back.
Please.
And Timmy and Pinstripe.
Brian Cashman
Did you
and
see
Yankees
how
would
Max
never
just
do
looked
that.
at me?
You must be
disgust.
crazy.
I'm glad he got a chance to try out. I don't hold that against him.
Come on.
People like Stephen A. are too down on Tebow, but he ain't playing baseball for my Yankees.
Here's what we know. Here's what he knows.
My life,
Tim Tebow has a great
Stephen
agent.
A., Max Kellerman.
A great agent.
I'm Molly.
That's for
We'll
sure.
see you
That's
guys
for sure.
tomorrow. We love his agent.